Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Build America, the construction industry podcast that pretty much captures and shares the heartbeat of the built environment. I'm your host, Kerry Smith Buck, and I'm also owner of CNR, or Construction News and Review magazine. And I'm really looking forward to today's topic. I know that we're all going to learn a lot from it because it's so critical to the built environment, and that's the topic of safety. And we couldn't have better experts on with us today. Joe Shryock is the corporate safety director at Icon Mechanical, and Joe leads a team of 18 safety professionals, as I understand, but just manage safety operations across numerous projects across the country. And Drake Zappia is regional safety manager at River City Construction. And for the past 5 years, like Joe, he's had a real passion and a commitment to returning men and women home safely to their families at the end of the workday. Joe and Drake, welcome to Build America.
Thank you for having us.
I appreciate you all. And I know what connected us was Donna Richter. She's been the CEO leading the Southern Illinois Builders Association. And when I was researching Donna's bio, I noticed that she was the recipient last year of Southern Illinois University Edwardsville's Distinguished Service Award, which they just give one of those every year. And not necessarily just construction industry, but just overall. Thought that was a really cool reflection of her more than 40 years with the same priorities as you both in this industry of safety. So on that note, I was going to ask each of you, Drake and Joe, if you could share how you've been of service on a volunteer scale to Southern Illinois Builders Association, either now or previously.
Yeah, so my boss, Sarah Gross, retired here in the beginning of the year, and she got me involved in the SIBA organization, going to meetings every month and just seeing what the industry is seeing, getting all the professionals together and talk about safety, what we're seeing, how can we better things. And it was pretty eye-opening seeing all the different aspects and different viewpoints from different types of construction. Getting into that and sat in all the meetings, became close with John and Donna, and I was voluntold one day that, hey, we need a younger chair for once. And everybody looked at me and I was like, I guess I'm going to be the chair of the safety committee. So I sat on that for the last 2 years and run the meetings, help John and Donna, whatever they need to do on setting up trainings or regional outreach programs to help better the safety in the areas. Yeah. Now we just do what we can to help the contractors out.
Thanks for being the designated young person.
That's right.
It's always good to have at least one of those on those boards or on those committees. And Joe, sounds like you've had a similar resume of volunteer service to SEBA. What have you done?
Been a part of SIBA for about 11 years now. First few years was hit or miss, just like Drake said, starting off slow with my predecessor, going to a couple meetings here or there. But the last 8 years or so, I've been a pretty steady member, serving as chairman at times, co-chair, just helping where I can as well. It's a really good organization. It gives us a place to all come together as safety professionals and really talk safety, learn new things, learn from one another, and also, like Drake said, that to help one another to the best of our ability. And in the safety world, there's no plagiarism or copyright, right? We share everything, no matter what it is. It could be personal programs, procedures, and that's it. SIBA gives us a really good place to do that. And some of us larger contractors are able to help out the smaller contractors that might not have the same resources. So it's really been a useful tool for not only us, but I would be willing to say most contractors that are a part of it.
That's awesome. Thanks for the good testimony of service on both your behalves and also about Southern Illinois builders. And so let's jump right into it today. I thought it might be interesting as a person who's tangential to the industry. We read a lot of, as journalists, we'll see a lot of news releases from OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Is that correct? I never spell out OSHA. Just seeing what they're identifying and results of surveys in the industry and research. And would love to hear from you all if there's top 3, top 4, top 5, just the top construction safety hazards, I guess, in terms of frequency or severity that OSHA is currently identifying, and then we'll maybe merge into which ones you're seeing. You're both seeing the most in the field, and I'm interested to see if those kind of line up or if they're different. Let's maybe start with either one of you can jump in or tag team on what OSHA's kind of top three-ish safety hazards are currently for I don't know if that's every year, but for 2025, what they've identified.
So it's a couple different ways to answer this. So as far as last year goes, the most cited violations for OSHA are going to deal with fall protection, ladders, things like that, either not being trained properly on ladder usage or using the wrong ladders or whatever it may be from a compliance standpoint, is what OSHA is seeing. But every year, no matter what the year is, it seems like there's four items that are the big numbers, right? Or the focus four for OSHA is what they call them, or the fatal four sometimes. And those are falls, struck by, electrocution, and caught in between. Those are the four items that always seem to be a part of any injury or illness on a construction site. And they account for about 60% of all job site fatalities in the United States. So it's a big number.
It
But
is.
from my point of view and my standpoint, you have that at 60% of all fatalities. So that puts the number at about 600 fatalities are related to those focus four items.
Wow.
A little deeper issue and a much bigger issue from the construction standpoint, and really just an overall hazard, is mental health, in my opinion. You can take all four of those items and focus four, which lead to the 600 on average fatalities, and it doesn't compare to the number. The CDC says that on average per year, there's over 5,000 deaths by suicide for construction workers per year.
Wow.
It's a huge thing. And the mental health and whole body health leads to the other incidents and injuries, and you name it on a construction site. It's all tied together, but that's something that I know all of us have been working really hard the last few years, trying to put a lot of focus on and a lot of attention towards to try to help everybody get home safe at the end of their days. Aside from the focus four, I would say just overall mental health and well-being, total body health, or lack thereof, I guess, would be what my number one hazard.
Yeah, very well articulated, Joe. What would you concur with that, Drake? Obviously, the focus four, but about the mental health, the
Oh,
weight
yeah.
of that and the magnitude.
Absolutely. Just walking job sites. Sometimes you just go out to a job site and try to talk with the guys instead of just get straight to business. Hey, how you doing? How was your weekend? How's the family? Just kind of open up that personal communication and relationship a little bit, because you never know, one conversation could go a long way with somebody. Yeah, it's definitely a pressing issue right now. These guys and gals are working 12, 14-hour days, 6 days a week, not a whole lot of family time. When they get home, they're tired. So just there's a lot of weight on this industry. Yeah, it's just something we have to keep on looking out for and doing whatever we can to help these folks out.
They see it and they appreciate it too. It's one of those things, right? The construction world is usually a tough, macho place to be. We do a lot of talks and just informational gatherings on the topic, and they all start the same. No matter where you're at, what job site you're on, how big or small the group is, there's always a few guys or gals in the room that make jokes about it, right? Play it off like it's no big deal. And like clockwork, almost every time they're the ones hanging out afterwards and shaking your hand and telling you thank you for talking about it and bringing it up. It's definitely a hazard. You could be the most well-trained individual on the planet and have the best and most plentiful resources available to you. But if your mind's not right, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're gonna miss a step in the process. You're not gonna inspect the tool properly. You're gonna not climb a ladder the right way, put your fall protection on the right way, and which will lead to the focus four that tend to get everybody.
I'm glad you said that, Joe, because I was just going to say, really, I see how interconnected those are. Because if you're not feeling like yourself, or you've got a really serious problem, a personal issue with family, or otherwise, you're distracted, right? And distraction is probably just could be a deadly form of distraction, not even from a suicide prevention standpoint, but just from maybe some of the causes for those people know in their head, probably inside out, the safety routines. But we've all done that at home. I'm not paying attention and I don't set up a ladder correctly. I can imagine on a commercial scale the magnitude of that.
It's like driving down the highway at 75 mile an hour with your phone right in front of your face, but doing it in a construction site with your mind not on your task. Same
Mm.
concept. It's just as hazardous and it's scary, but I'm just glad it's being talked about.
Exactly. So really the second part of this will probably be very similar in terms of first the focus or fatal fours. Which ones do you feel like what OSHA's identified lines up with what in terms of stuff? For some reason, oh, I get it now. For some reason, I was thinking that excavation that collapses were on there, but that's the caught in between. Is that the ditch collapses on workers? Is that what is that what caught in between means?
It's caught in between. It's caught or compressed by equipment or objects or dirt. So a cave in or a collapse would fall in that category.
Because I know it was OSHA had that was like a really big priority. Was it a year or two ago that the numbers on those alone were up so far that they were doing some kind of special
Yeah.
add-on safety
I
campaign
believe
for
there's
that?
a national emphasis program open excavations. And what that means is if an OSHA inspector drives by it for any reason, sees an open excavation, they have to stop and take a look and make sure that everything is in order, all the proper steps are being followed, and everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing.
It sounds funny, but I never imagined what that looks like. And then before I moved into my current house, I had one of those sewer disasters on closing where somebody had to come in and put in a new sewer line. And so this was just residential, but they had this big, not very large, but deep trench. And that kind of brought it home to me. I imagined that on a scale of 10 times that or more. And just the fragility of that. Not being in directing construction, I didn't appreciate how fragile a situation that is.
For us, we do a lot of wastewater treatment plants and water treatment plants. So right now we're doing a project out in Wentzville area and just very deep excavations just for that water to be able to come in and leave the site. Anything over 20 foot in depth has to be engineered by RPE, registered professional engineer, and designed for the shoring of it. So I know one of our trenches is around 30 foot and another one's around 55. Just the unique hazards that presents is hard enough, let alone sending people in there to do work. We always just got to make sure we have the correct shoring and following that engineered plan to a T to make sure everything stays where it's supposed to do. Mother Nature always wants to fill itself in. So just got to always be thinking about that.
Yeah. And getting that information out, especially to the smaller contractors and the small family-owned businesses and things like that, even if they don't fall under OSHA's realm, they don't know what they don't know. And I can't tell you how many times 20 years plus ago that I've seen open excavation, and even still to this day, sometimes I've had to stop. I can't force myself to drive by something like that and not stop and at least educate and just let them know, hey, you're putting yourself at risk here. But there's a lot of companies out there still that don't have any sort of, never even seen a shore box or any sort of protection items for an excavation. It's scary what companies don't know and what workers don't know, especially about open excavations.
Wow. And the struck bys, could that be, what are examples of what, if you're working on like vertical construction and there's a crane moving materials or what, I guess it could be a variety of
It could
things.
be anything. It could be hit by a piece of falling tool. Somebody drops a tool, strikes somebody from an upper level, a piece of equipment, whether it be a forklift or a boom lift or a mobile elevated work platform, hits a worker. It could be anything. A worker struck by equipment, tools, material of any sort on a project. I would say drop tools would be a big one, especially in our line of work. We do a lot of multi-floor construction buildings. Workers or crafts drop in a drill or a hammer or anything from a floor above. Is always a constant
Oh,
hazard.
yeah. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize. What would be I know it's different in every situation, but what would be the remedy or the prevention for that? Are there certain, like, as soon as you're done using a tool, you put it in X, Y, Z? Or
There's lots of different ways you can do it. Tool lanyards is one. Some sites require it, that every tool that you have over an open hole has a tool lanyard attached to it. And what that is, it's basically a lanyard that attaches to the bottom of your hammer or screwdriver or drill, and then it attaches to the front side of your harness or it attaches to your wrist. That way, if it does slip out of your hand, it doesn't fall all the way down. Controlled access zones is another one. It's a big one that's used on most projects. And what that is, you just protect the area below so nobody can actually walk underneath it. We do a lot of work in shafts, elevator shafts and duct shafts and things like that. So we always have the bottom floor completely barricaded off and outward, not just the size of the shaft, but for deflection and things like that. You got to spread that controlled access zone out to keep people physically out from underneath where the tool, plan for the tool to drop, expect it to drop. That way nobody's there when it does.
That makes sense. Anything you want to add to that, Drake? Or is that pretty much standard for you guys too? Is it, did you say an anchor, Joe? What were you saying about the lanyard? The lanyard?
It's a lanyard, yeah, that, like I said, it anchors to either your wrist, your arm, the front side of your harness, a bunch of different styles and uses for them, but it just connects you to your tool. So there's a physical connection.
Very good. Do your companies, are you guys getting into sort of additional wearable safety devices? I'm trying to think, we did a story on this a while back, and it was, I think it had to do with maybe smart helmets or sensors or things that may be in another whole podcast episode, but things that monitor the worker's temperature or their health, or I'm not sure what those smart devices are.
Drake, you guys doing anything?
We have not. We've been looking into the new safety helmets versus the hard hat style, which are basically has a chin strap, keeps your helmet on in the case of a fall, and it's better for side impact. But with the smart hard hats that detect readings and stuff, no, we have not done anything with that.
We've ventured into them a little bit. A couple of years ago, we trialed some ergonomics monitors for our shop employees, and it basically teaches, and they were teaching in real time just proper lifting mechanics and things like that. And it would beep and alert them if they did things wrong. It also gave us a dashboard view of the habits, and it worked really well for our shop employees because our shop employees tend to do the same job. It's more repetitive. It wasn't too practical for our field workers because everything changes and it was hard to build a baseline and see what was good and what wasn't. Before our shop employees, it worked really well. Everybody's lifting mechanics improved over time. I think everything was a 28-day trial period that they almost guaranteed that it would improve over a 28-day period. And it did for the most part. So those were pretty neat. And then currently we are sampling lone worker devices. So we have a very large service fleet. They work by themselves an awful lot, sometimes on roofs and things like that. The lone worker devices, they've got multiple things that are really cool, I think. They've got fall detection. So if the service tech falls and doesn't move, or just if the monitor isn't moving for a while, it'll alert us. It's actually a 4-gas air monitor as well. So it detects all your explosive limits and your oxygen levels and things like that. Atmosphere, not of the individual. And then it's got built in like the old school Nextel walkie-talkie devices if they can talk back and forth with dispatch. And then it's also got a man down manual alarm on them. So if they do fall or hurt themselves, they can pull the lever on the monitor and it'll send their GPS coordinates to whoever we set up in the system. So it's pretty neat. Definitely something I hadn't seen before. So we're trialing that out through Blackline Safety, I think is the company's name that we're using. But that's something that we're probably going to go with for at least our service techs. We feel a little bit more comfortable, especially come the hot months and it's 100+ degrees outside. We tend to pair them up an awful lot in the summer and the hot months. We still will probably pair them up just because we feel better about it, but having the monitors give us a little bit more peace of mind.
Oh, that's a great example. I never thought about, because when I think about construction workers, I always think about a team. And so I didn't think about lone workers, people working solo, but I imagine, like you just said, the example of service technicians, they're going to be out changing territory and out they are working a lot of times by themselves. What a great example of safety. I wanted to ask you guys too about safety hazards inside, just in the prefab shops or in the office. I tend to not think of offices as not being safe spaces when you compare them to job sites. But I wonder, I was at the AGC of Missouri office a couple of weeks ago, and they had all these safety things up, and I thought, oh yeah, that's probably just as big a deal. And I'm sure Southern Illinois Builders does as well, of just emphasizing indoor safety. And I guess I should split those up into the shop the prefabrication or the shop and the office. But is there anything just office wise that you have to tell people about in construction, practicing safety? What would be potential areas there? I guess the same like falls and ladders.
Yeah, for us, most of our office stuff is just accountants, estimators, project managers. So we don't do a whole lot of general industry type things, but the things we do have is like an AED. We try to have an AED on all of our sites. Internal defibrillator. Uh,
Oh, sure, one of those
yeah.
devices.
So in
Okay.
case
Okay.
heart palpitation or whatever it may be,
Yeah.
we try to have all those on site. That way it just straightens that time for trained professionals to come on site and rescue. So we like to have all those in the office and on all the job sites. But other than that, in the office for us personally is not.
Yeah. I would say, especially in our office setting, because we have a pretty large office setting with, well, three of them, ergonomics, just building the workspace around the individual and not making the individual adjust to the workstation. Just something as simple as a wrist rest for their keyboard and their mouse areas, or footstools we give them, because if they're too short and your legs almost dangle all day, that can cause stress on your body and your lower extremities. Another thing that we do quite a bit is most of our desks have an elevated feature, so they can actually stand at times to help get the blood flowing and not be sitting in that position. Try to help avoid things like carpal tunnel and stuff like that
Oh,
over
sure.
multiple years of typing. And we've been focusing too. We have a 50-pound rule. You're not supposed to lift anything over 50 pounds by themselves or manually. So we try to identify what those items are, common items, not only in the construction site, but in the office as well, like a box of printer paper. People usually don't think about that, but a full box of printer paper is over 50 pounds. So we remind our office staff to think about that and maybe get one of the carts or whatnot to do it, or just grab one ream at a time instead of the whole box.
Yeah. So
So,
again, it's just really focusing on concentrating on
yeah,
what you're doing, what your safe capability is
I would
with
say
it.
another thing that we deal with, and it's not, I mean, it's safety related, but like fatigue and burnout, and especially in the office setting, sometimes it can seem a little mundane and repetitive, and just allowing them to break it up occasionally and go for a job site tour or get out of the office and see what they've been supporting. Or we've got a very big support to build initiative that we've been doing, and really allowing our office staff to see exactly what they're supporting by going out and taking tours and seeing what they're helping build, even though they're not physically hands on, but getting them out there and letting them interact with the field and tie the two together. That's been a good way we've been trying to break up some of that monotony and burnout, or at least combat it.
Yeah. That's great. Gosh, our time is already up. I wish these were longer, but we noticed the sweet spot for people paying attention is about here. So thank you, Joe Shryock. Thank you, Drake Zappia. And thank you to your employers, Icon Mechanical and River City Construction. And just really appreciate your service too to the Southern Illinois Builders Association and all these great comments and helpful information on safety hazards and mental health. And I just really appreciate you both being here today, and I hope you come back.
Oh, it'd be my pleasure.
Yep. Thanks for having us.
Oh, you bet. This has been Build America, and we'll see everybody next time. Thanks for listening.